All right. Hi, everyone. We are on, and I have family to me on this week. It's a special one for me. Lately, I think we've been having some pretty good guests. Last week, we had Graciela Casillas in, and now we have another amazing woman, somebody who I think has just done more than most people have done in 100 years. She's probably gotten done in 30 years. So this is family to me. This is Susan Sobrepeña. She is my wife's cousin. She's an Inisano lineage family. And she is a captain. She is a graduate from West Point. She's served in the U.S. military overseas and in Afghanistan. And welcome. Hi.
Hi. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me.
Oh, yeah. I'm really excited to have you.
So we're going to
So,
get in detail with Susan in a few minutes, but we wanted to, yesterday at midnight basically was our relaunch of the Mars site. So we've been doing a lot of work behind the scenes getting this going. I mean, it's not something that we just can whip out in a couple of weeks, because we have to think about how this thing is going to expand over time. And we're expecting this thing is going to go global. We're going to we're starting basically with Guru Ron's material. I mean, he's got great material, so we're kind of taking that, repackaging it a little bit, adding a lot of places where we were missing pieces. So people have asked, like, what's the price? So what I looked at as far as how we market this, as a photographer, I belong to a lot of different groups, that I subscribe to, a lot of subscriptions. It used to be the old days, you would buy like Adobe Photoshop. Now everyone's going subscriptions. So a lot of photographers are creating subscriptions now to give content, to teach people how to light, or how to do a fashion shoot and so forth. Well, Sue Bryce is one of my favorite photographers. I mean, she's pretty well known in the industry, and her organization is just taken off like amazing. So they do a script subscription, and the yearly price is $2.99. And I kind of look at the same things that they're doing. They're doing some live events. They've got content teaching, like, say, a photographer how to start from week one all the way to 10 weeks to become a photographer. Well, I kind of looked at Ron's site, and it's the same thing. We're kind of taking people through a beginning, intermediate, advanced curriculum that they can actually get certified, get tested. So this is kind of what we're using for the formula. So we repackaged this. It's named not Access Bundle. It's called the JKD Collie Bundle. And so the focus is mainly about the JKD and the Collie. There'll be some more things that we're adding, but as a member for $2.99 a year, which is a little over $25 a month, basically, for $2.99, you're getting all access to the bundle. You're going to get 2 live classes from Ron monthly. So those will sell on the site for $49. So I mean, just look at the cost there. At $98 a month, you're looking about $1,100 for the year, and you're only paying $2.99. Plus, you're getting about, I think, 22 courses that's included. And this time, I asked Ron if we could throw in a couple more of the camps that he had paid, that you paid $149 on the site. And he goes, yeah, sure. Not reluctantly. He said, yeah, sure. Because when I asked him to give the book that time, he was like, oh, I don't want to know. But he gave it up. He understood. He wanted the members to have some extra, bonuses in that. So you're getting also now basically $300 in camps. So it's a super great deal. Now, here's the thing. For a limited time, we're going to give you a coupon code. And I think Larry is going to post that, because I gave it to him last night. That'll give you $100 off. Okay. But it's for a limited time. $199. You're looking at about $16.50 a month. So for our current subscribers that were on the monthly, since we're not going to do the monthly anymore, I would suggest you cancel that, sign up under the year. Make sure you sign up for the JKD Collie package, because if you think about it, you were already paying $29 a month. You're paying $16.50, and you're going to be having access to Ron's first live event. What I think, is it June the 8th, Ron?
yeah, I think so.
No, it's June 9th.
June
It's a
9th,
Wednesday.
Wednesday.
At 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, it's going to be the JKD class, okay? And then we'll have another event later that month for the Collie class. And so you look at it, it's $49 if you have to purchase it to see it. It's all included in your membership. So again, we're going to give you more details. We're going to post information. But if you're a current member that was on the subscription, we will not, on the monthly, we won't have that next month. So you might as well just cancel it and immediately join and get that $100 coupon, because that's going to save you $100. For $199, $16.50 a month, you're getting more than you had before, and we'll be giving you more material. And just be patient. Larry and I and Ron, I mean, we're talking to Ron weekly on what he's going to be filming so that we can complete that collie beginner, intermediate, and advanced. And so we have milestones each month that we're going to accommodate our members. So I think you're going to be very pleased what's going to be happening in the next couple months. Ron, anything you want to add to that?
No. I mean, you kind of got everything. June 9th is the first class, and we're going to have two. So now, in the future, if I ever can't make one of the classes, because we're going to offer two a month, we will have guest instructors. We will be obviously somebody who I feel is really, really at a level to where they can give you something equal or better to what I give. And Cliff could teach some. We'll ask guest instructors, a lot of big names in. So you're always going to get those two classes. So that's the promise we're making to you. And I think that together, man, it's a great deal. So we're giving a lot of material away.
And one other thing I'm going to add, because I don't want to give away everything we're going to be looking at the future, but like I said, this thing is going to expand, and we're going to have other instructors courses that'll be available. I just don't want to tell you about some of the things but I want to tell you about it, but I'm going to hold off on that. But so again, you're going to be getting so much more than you had in the past. So sign up today, get busy.
Okay. Hey, Cliff, you know what time it is.
Yeah, it's time for what the F. So here's our segment for this weekend. This is really my pet peeve of why I go places and people cannot seem to pick up their litter. I mean, they'll take gum, throw it out, and now with all the masks, I mean, I hate to say it, when I see a mask thrown on, it just makes me think of I don't know, it's like someone throwing a condom out there and leaving it. It's disgusting.
Or a needle, or like a drug user using a needle. I mean, if you think about what a mask is holding inside it, if a person potentially has COVID and they're discarding it on the ground, somebody's got to pick that up. And you're right. I see them everywhere now. It's just driving me bananas, and it is. It's like seeing a condom on the ground to me.
Every time I see it, that's what I tell my wife. I said, Deb, God, it's disgusting. That's what it makes me think of. Threw it out there and didn't go take it to the garbage. But yeah, I mean, if we had our masks, we'd always take them and put them in my pocket, or if I do dispose of them, we do it in the trash. We walk over, put it in the trash. But now you see them in shopping carts or just laid on the ground. I mean, it's just, again, why are people so inconsiderate? That's not even with...
Susan, you're out of New York, right?
Yep, I am in New York City, in Manhattan. And previous to the whole thing, previous to the whole pandemic issue, I use a subway. Now I walk everywhere. I don't care if it's 50 blocks, but even when you're standing on the subway platform, a couple of times I've seen people open something they're eating and just throw the plastic wrap on the tracks, all sorts of craziness.
I don't know. It just seems to get worse every year I look at it. And here's another my pet peeve. We walk our dogs, and I tell you, everywhere we go, in our community, it's like everywhere you walk, they got a little station with dog baggies, and there's a garbage right next to it. And we'll be walking our way, and I'm like, just dog crap everywhere. But what really gets me is sometimes it'll be right next to the baggies and the trash can, and they won't even pick it up and throw it. And I'm like, I mean,
I get psychotic when I see garbage laying on the ground next to a trash can. I'm like, really? Somebody had to do that. I'm driving, I see a lot of people, they're so bold now. I mean, they always have been, of just discarding it out the window. And I've literally got out of my car, picked up and say, hey, you dropped this. And I hand it back to them. And a lot of people are, ugh. And so far you could see, I've not gotten comment back from people, but I could see I irritated them by giving them their own trash back. I'll hand it back to people.
The only thing I would be okay with them littering if they threw out $100 bills. I would be okay with that. I'd pick up that litter.
Yeah, that ain't gonna happen.
Yeah.
So, but no, I agree. And the dog poop thing. Yeah, we have cameras now at our house, so I'll come outside and I'm so pissed. I'll go, Diana, and I'll get that camera and I'll look and I go, I know who's doing that. And then
we're responsible pet owners, so wherever we go, we always have our bags with us because that's what we do, right? But Deb and I, every time we walk, I go, we can't. How does that happen? How come? And it always seems to be the big dogs, like the big mess that and it's like right on the sidewalk. I mean, it's like, I can understand if it's out kind of the side, but like right on the sidewalk and they don't pick it up. But again, that says something. I mean, who are those kind of people? Are they the people like you go to Costco? I mean, one time I saw at Costco, you know how people they change their mind and they'll put something on the shelf. You put ice cream. You put like a half a gallon of ice cream. I go, you got to be kidding me, right? I mean, well, you think it's not going to melt? Do you just throw it there? I mean, at least, and it's not that far to walk back. I mean, anytime we decide, we walk back or we give it to the clerk, and say, hey, we changed our mind. But yeah, again, I don't get it why people could just throw it off onto the side, and I don't know what's going on.
Well, let's discard that. We'll throw that in the trash and let's get on to Susan. So, Susan, like Diana and I, you're a big topic at our house all the time because you're always on the phone with us. We always see you. There's always something either going on with your life helping us or our life trying to help you out, and a lot of interaction. You're really family. You're probably Diana's closest family member right now. And, I think back and I kind of think of your journey. And I mean, all the way from thinking of your roots as a little girl, getting here, going everything you went through. I kind of want to try to hit as much as we can for the hour. So let's start with that. So you naturalized here, right?
Yes, I was born in Bacolod City, Philippines, the Visayas Islands. My parents left for America, and I stayed behind with family members, aunts and grandfathers, grandmother, So they left when I don't even think a year old. They came to America and I stayed behind. And my mom worked for a finance insurance company here in the city. My dad worked with the UN. And when they could finally afford to bring me and my sister over, I was close to 4. So I didn't even know my parents for the first 3 years of my life.
Oh, wow.
Pretty much, yeah. So, lived initially here in Yonkers. And anyway, so that's how it all started. I was pretty young when I came, so I had to learn the language. I came from a tropical climate to New York, which was very different back in the day, right? And it was, I think, a culture shock, because in the Philippines, where my aunts were and even where my grandparents were living, on my father's side, because I stayed with my aunt on my mom's side, also in Inosanto. I mean, there, it was so primitive, so primitive, the house was made out of bamboo. There was no plumbing, in-house plumbing, pretty much no electricity. So it's one of those things that was such a culture shock, then coming to America here and, landing, I think, JFK Airport. I think it was snowing at the time. I still remember that, because I had never seen snow. And I think at the time, one of the most amazing things I saw was a supermarket, because I had never seen a supermarket. It's now, forget it, walking to Whole Foods, it's the seas have parted and you're wow, because I had never seen that. Because when I stayed with my grandparents and they lived in a place called Binalbagan, also in the Visayas Islands, they had a chicken farm in the back. So it's oh, you want some chicken to eat? Okay, hold on. Then my uncle would go and kill the chicken and, pluck the feathers and all that. And so I thought that's what everyone did. So when I got here and everything, everything was frozen, everything was there. It was amazing. Yeah. Just little things like that. So yes, I went from the Philippines and came to America. And that's how it all started.
Susan, we take for granted what you just said about the supermarket, because when I was in mainland China doing a film for 10 weeks, and I mean, it was really poor where we were at. And, we craved things. And I'll never forget when I came back to the United States and went into Safeway, it was oh my God, it's all the stuff that we can get here. Because you don't know, and that's why it's an eye opener for people who they just have never left the United States, not to visit a third world country, and then start to realize how good we really got it here.
Yeah. So was schooling in Jersey or New York?
Both, right? Both. So we lived also in Jersey and New York. Okay. Near the UN here, not too far from where I'm currently living now, and so I went to schools in Jersey and New York. And at that point, I think towards the end of high school, or even that's when the naturalization paperwork, was finally coming through. Because people don't they don't realize to become a U.S. citizen, takes a lot of work, right? We were sponsored, like my mom's company sponsored the whole family. I think we were the last family they sponsored, but it's because she did well in the company, and she was good at her job. But, and I'm not saying it should be easy, because at the same time, you have to know American history. There's a lot of things you need to know, but it's very tedious, running back and forth to the attorney's office. You got to get all this and that. So when I decided that I wanted to go to West Point, you have to get a congressional nomination. You have to pass the physical aptitude exam. You have to pass the DOD-MERB, DOD, like Medical Examination Review Board. So it's a very long process. And I finally got in, and I graduated in 2002. So we just had our 19-year anniversary of our graduation, and next year will be our 20th year, the reunion.
So what prompted you to go to West Point? Why West Point? Was it?
Well, both my grandfathers, served in the war, World War II. My one grandfather, he was actually in the Bataan Death March. He I accepted for him posthumously the Congressional Gold Medal Award. He was a guerrilla, and he passed away at the VA hospital in the early 90s, I believe, or late 80s. And my other grandfather, had worked for General MacArthur, more so on the logistics side. So when we first moved, my grandfather, who was a guerrilla, we would take trips to West Point because, it's historical. It was close to New York City and Jersey, and my parents felt it was important to know about American history. So we would go there, frequent there. And in high school, I would run some of my track meets there. And, I just thought it would be a cool thing to do. I wanted to study engineering, and I got to do that. I just felt that a lot of the people, the leaders that West Point produced, were people that I wanted to emulate, so yeah. Also, my mom was on a dialysis. She was still alive at the time. So I knew that being at West Point, 45, or like an hour away, if she wanted to visit sometimes during the weekends, they could, so that was the other thing. Because I also thought about the Naval Academy and, and other schools nearby here in New York, but I chose West Point.
Can I interrupt for a minute? What was your first thought of, this is what I'm going to do. This is why I want, what was the motivation?
I just thought it was such a cool thing, because when we would go to West Point, I would see cadets, walking and that, and, I would see just some cadets you would see them in the parades, and you would see them, running. And I remember, my mom said, and I think at the time I was maybe 6 or 7. She's like, you have to be really smart to get in here. And that's, I think, how it all started. I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, oh, you have to be smart in school. You have to be physically fit, So she's like, look how nice this place is. I just remember I think the architecture I love, the history. My grandfather, we were at the MacArthur statue. He's like, oh, he's like, when I was, in the Philippines fighting, this is, one of the people that was there. So that was all new history to me at the time, right? And just the more that I was learning about the people that went there, later on they served, in the American military. I think that's what interested me. And the fact that they don't just accept anyone, right? And I think, my parents, my mom especially, she would have set high standards, right? Standards are always high. So I was like, wow, this is nice. This looks the uniforms are clean and proper. These people, it just looked cool to be one of them, at the time. I had no idea how tough it would be to get in because I was just a kid, but I knew it at the very least that they were doing something, right? Because they believed, they believed in leadership. They believed in, they believed in giving back to the country, right? Mm-hmm. And for me, coming from the Philippines, I was like, oh, wow. I learned more and more as the years went on. And then, I met people that, how it was for them and what they did later on. And, and they were like, I think it would be good for you. It's like, oh, okay. So that's how it is. But I pretty much like researched a lot of schools, and I was like, this is where I wanted to go. So I knew early on in my life that that's, where I wanted to go and what I wanted to do.
What would be a typical day? I mean, what would, from time you wake up, how early, what you do, and how late you go, and drilling, what would you do in a typical day?
Well, I think your first year, you're called the plebe, right? And your day starts so early before the sun even comes up. And you have to memorize like the front page of the newspaper. At the time, it was like New York Times, and I think it was like Washington Post or something. You have to know your knowledge. You have to, make sure your shoes are polished, your uniform, your room is ready for inspection, and then after that, then you have to meet with your team leader. They ask you questions. Oh, what was the score of the game last night? What, you have to know a bit of everything, whether it's political, it's sports, current events, things like that. You have to know that there's this thing you have to recite called the days till whatever the first football game, the days till the winter weekend, all these. So you just have all this knowledge that you have to memorize and know even before you get to formation, right? So formation, you have formation, and then you go all march into the cadet mess hall, right? And when you're a plebe, you have to do duties, right? That's the other thing too. Even before you have to memorize all that stuff, you're also like sometimes dropping off newspapers to people's, door in all the upperclassmen or something, whatever it is, laundry duties, So that's your morning. When you get to the mess hall, then you have more duties, right? You eat family style. So like, just think of it like, there's the senior, the first is the head of the table. Then you have all the other cadets from, and the plebe sits at the opposite, right? That's the freshman. And you have a mix of like juniors, which are called cows, and sophomores, which are called yucks. And you have table duties, and you have to know, you have to say, sir, ma'am, today for breakfast we were having, you have to know the whole menu for that day. And you even have to know sometimes the whole week, Some people ask you, well, what's for lunch? What's for dinner? What's tomorrow's breakfast? Just everything. Now, after that, you go to your classes. Then you have class all day, then you have formation again for lunch. Then after lunch, you either have your classes, and after your classes, you do sports, whether it's intramural or whether you're in a division sport. So you do that. And typically dinner, with the exception of Thursdays, it's called optional dinner, because sometimes you just go grab, something to eat and just bring it back to your cadet barracks, or, that's pretty much your day. Then you get back and then you start on your homework and everything else. And then lights out, and it's called taps. And the upperclassmen go through, make sure that if you're a plebe, that the lights are out. That's that, and begins the next day, and it keeps going on.
It's medial, but I could see it's tedious. You think about it, and I could see in a way why they do it. It's making you just get current and getting a habit of researching and looking. And to the average person, I guess it might be like, I have to look at or memorize a menu, or I have to look at a front page of a newspaper, but I could see how that's grooming you later for like a lot of other things. So I could see the value, and it's pretty cool. It just seems like I'd go bananas, and I'm sure you did too. But okay, so now you're in there. So you're West Point. For one, how did you get into West Point? You usually have to be sponsored, don't you?
Yeah. So you have to get a congressional, nomination, or sometimes too, I think if you had a parent that there's different nominations. If you're a football player, you can be nominated, there's different ways, or senators can nominate you too. So you have to write a letter, and, and sometimes they interview you, and other times they don't. They just say, we can't, unfortunately we can't nominate you. And that's how it is. And at the time I was living in Jersey. So it was Congressman Torricelli that gave me my nomination. And so there's other people too that you can get a nomination from. Pretty much, and they can nominate, I believe, 10 for each opening spot. So if a cadet graduates from like state of California, they can nominate 10 for that cadet spot.
How many people do you think put in? I mean, how many did your congressman get? I'm sure you got
they get a lot. They get a lot, especially like in the area here, like the Northeast. You don't get as much from like say Wyoming or like I don't think Vermont has many, but in the states like Texas or California or New York, like you get a lot of people that apply, and it's difficult. I think at least like I don't even know. I think at the time it was like I don't even know how many, but I know that it's a lot, and you have to interview. And I think the ones that are the hardest are the senators, right? From what I've heard, but I think when I just got the nomination, I was like, oh, great,
Yeah, no, that's a lottery. It's more than lottery. You work your butt off to get there. But I mean, I'm just trying to think. I'm sure that a lot of them, they're going to look at it and just say they're deficient in this area, discard, and they just weed out and taking the cream of the crop. So it's pretty cool that you did it. Now, were there a lot of women in there with you?
No, so I think there's more now, but at the time I was there, so that was 1998, right? I believe, because I asked some of the people at admissions this, and I think they published it too. I think like 11 or 1,200 apply from that. So the first two, if you leave the first 2 years, you don't owe anything, but if you leave the first day of your cow or junior year, you owe like, the tuition, right? So if people leave, they'll do it the first 2 years. That's if they leave of their own accord, right? Not anything from disciplinary or academic issues. So, let me see. So from the 11 or 1,200 initially, we graduated like about 900 or less than 900 cadets, and less than 100 were women, and even less were minorities. Wow. So, so there weren't that many in like I think in my company. So in the company you have I think there were only 4 of us in my as plebes, 4 females as plebes, who stayed. I think there was another one, but who dropped off at some point. So and then there were just us.
It's still a man's world,
Yeah. I think now there's a little more diversity. Like I've seen, I've read, there were, I think at least 1 or 2 Native Americans that graduated. It's now I can see the diversity, because before I'd never seen one as a cadet, never even heard of one. So I'm glad now that there's more, more integration. And
here's a big question: would you do it again?
Like if I had to turn back time, knowing what I know, and redo everything. I believe so.
Yeah. No, that says a lot, though. I mean, because I know it's arduous. I know it's hard. And it takes up a big part of your life. But I mean, it kind of makes you, and
I would have to have amnesia and forget that I went there the first time. But I don't know now if you're like, okay, go back now. You got to do all these obstacle courses, because I'm only like 5 feet tall. I'm small, right? And the place isn't really meant for small people. And if you like knocked me out or gave me like a magic pill to like forget that I was there and restart, I think that would be better than having gone through than doing it again.
Yeah. So all right, well, speaking of that, like the height thing, did it make it, I mean, I'm sure it was harder in a lot of areas. Did it behoove you in other areas to have that height? Are there certain like things that you do that accommodate more for a shorter stature person than somebody taller?
I think for me, I think it was easier for me to go through like airborne school, because since I'm lighter, and you're jumping out of a plane. So the force, the impact, it's like I stayed up for a long time. It took me a while to get down, but at least it wasn't bad, like it was, even though I pretty much probably pulled the wrong risers at some point, but I still landed. You have to do 5 jumps. but it was still, like nothing as hard as some of the guys I knew in the football team that were like, oh God, I don't want to do that again. Because once they jumped out, they would be on the ground like quick.
Yeah.
That was the first one out, but like the last one to come down from the plane. So to me, that's what made things easy. But other than that, we have an obstacle course called the Ioct, indoor obstacle course test. And part of it, you got to low crawl, you got to go through these, if you Google it, Ioct, West Point, right? You got to go through tires and you got to jump over a horse. Then you got to jump on the shelf and mount the shelf. Now, I had to turn back around after I went over the horse and get some momentum to get on the shelf. And, because it's not meant for somebody small, right?
Yeah.
So, and now, it's a graduation requirement. So it's like, you really have to keep, training until you do it, because otherwise it's,
So your teammates, I'm sure all sorts of people, some really gracious, some kind of, probably just mean. Does everybody kind of come together with you? I mean, after a while, you think they're with you probably, and I don't know how your basic training in West Point was,
right.
If it's 6 months, a year or whatever, but do you still get the misogynistic thing, or does everybody let it go and they're like, she's one of us?
Unfortunately, yes. It's like, they're not a lot nicer to me now when they see me now, but, it's called Beast when it's your first year, and you go to West Point during the summer, right? It's called R Day. If you miss R Day, you're not even, you can't even continue, right? Because everyone has to have the experience. From R Day, that's when you do all your basic training. You learn, you learn your knowledge, you learn everything, how it is out in the field. Just, it's pretty much your welcome to West Point type thing. And, for the most part, like, you get along with people, but also sometimes, like, in my squad, one time I was like the only girl, and you have 9 other guys. You have some that are helpful, and some that want to work with you. But there's always, I don't want to say always, but you also have the people that will do, will intentionally make you look bad, right? Yeah. Thinking of a time. And it's like, once, you see how they are, it's like you want nothing to do with them, but like you have to work with them. So you gotta like bite your tongue, be like, oh, damn. Like, let's see, for example, like there's some guys who are also small, not just me, right? So I remember one time we were doing ruck march somewhere in the woods, and you have to go up some of these steep mountains. So even somebody, some usually the biggest guy goes first, you get him up there, then starts helping to pull the other people up. So even if you have a small guy, you still gotta, get pulled up, right? So I got pulled up, and the guy's like, oh, give me, whatever, your rifle or, whatever, your rucksack, so we can get you up and get moving. It's like, all right, I get up there, and then I'm like, give me my weapon, all that stuff. He goes, oh, no, he goes, oh, we're going downhill, I'll give it to you in a little bit. I was like, no, I'll take it now. So he waited maybe like 5 minutes to give it to me. And later on went back and said, see, I had to carry her stuff. It's like, get the hell out of here, And so he was nice to me later on, but I don't think it was genuine, because I don't think he knew that I heard him say that. But like with me, all it takes is one damn time. You piss me off, I'm like, yeah, I'll work with you. I'll play this whole BS game, but other than that, like, I want nothing to do with you. Yeah. And unfortunately, there were people like that,
I'm close with Graciela, and you've met Graciela. She's a kickboxer, amazing, and she's like was doing this, and some of the stories I've heard from her over the years were just guys kind of sabotaging her, and it's a shame, because it's just you're already against the odds, like maybe stature, size, and the way things are modified. Why make the game harder for this person? So it's just it's unfortunate, but it's part of our culture. Hopefully it's changing, but yeah.
Like all the people that were helpful and nice whenever they need something, or if they want to come to New York City, I always make sure to make time for them. But ironically, it's a lot of people that weren't so nice that writes me, they need help finding a job now, or this and that, and it's like, okay.
So let's fast forward after your military service and you got out, making the transition. Because I even know, I mean, I didn't go to Vietnam, but I was during the Vietnam era, and I got out, and it was just kind of a weird transition coming, from military to civilian, kind of adapting to that whole thing. I would wake up sometimes having, like dreams and stuff that I was still in the service, and I've got to salute and I got to make sure I got my uniform because you're kind of trained to behave a certain way, and so how did you go about that transition once you got out of the service?
So pretty much I left Fort Drum on a Friday, and that Monday I was actually not too far from where I'm living now as a analyst. I was a real estate commercial mortgage-backed securities CMBS analyst, one of the top companies here. And there was really no like time period, because Fort Drum in New York City is 4 or 5 hours away. So it was still go, go, go. I never had a break. And it never had a break. And I knew when I was still in that, when I got out, I wanted to come back here in New York City when there was a place where there's more diversity, So worked as an analyst. I had finished my MBA, before my deployment. So I was here, I worked in the company as an analyst, and at night, they also paid for me to go to school to NYU to study real estate finance and investment. So, but, that was pretty much, I think, my strength, the real estate world, because I started investing when I was still in the Army. In West Point, we get this, it's called Cal Loan, like your third year, all the service academy people get it. It's like 24,000 at 1%, right? Some people get a car, some people do, just spend it on whatever it is, but I kept it, and I was like, well, in case this whole Army thing doesn't work out for me, doesn't pan out, let me start investing. So I did that while I was still in. And when I got out, I worked in, as an analyst, and I went to school, and I did whatever I could to learn about real estate, professionally and personally. And that's what I did. I was there early at work, like 7:30 sometimes, in front of the Bloomberg terminal, getting all the news. It was like a plebe learning, the daily knowledge again, right? Or newspaper. And from there, work in the afternoon, I would go to NYU, go to school. I was up probably 6 in the morning, got to work 7:30. Then when I got home from school, it was probably late at night, 10 or 11, and it began again. But, I felt it was important to establish myself. Some people, when they got out, the first thing they did was go on vacation. But, so there was no time period where I even rest, took a rest.
Did you ever wake up and think, oh, you're still in the military? Because that's kind of what I did for a long time. Like, oh, that's right, I'm out now. I don't have to, I can grow my hair long. I can do all these things that, when I was in the service, I was always worried that someone's going to call me out on my haircut, things like that, which they did. So it was this, all of a sudden I'm like free, it was like weird.
Yeah, I think maybe in the beginning, but, for the most part, I was just like, all right, I'm free, I can, in the military, it's like you get up early, and you have especially pre-deployment, right? During deployments, you have a whole full day ahead of you. And sometimes you deal with good people, sometimes you deal with bad people, and, I always said to myself, well, if I'm going to have to, work with people I dislike, I'd rather get out, put in the time and effort and make myself wealthy, do myself, do whatever it is I can to, to have a better life, have a better life than what I used to have. So it was pretty much like go, go, go for many years. That's all I did. Just work and save up, invest, and just, that's how it was for many years.
Do you keep up with people that you were in West Point with, or that you served with?
So, I'm not, I'm not a big reunion person, but for the people that I want, that I was friendly with and keep in touch with, I still do keep in touch with them. There's a couple that, visit me, when they can, or, I talk to, you met some of my friends, right, from West Point. So yeah, even if I'm in another state visiting, if they so happen to be there, they'll come watch me because because I run marathons. They'll come watch me, run or do something. But the ones that I'm close to, I still talk to. I make time for, no matter how busy I am. It just seems like all the time.
The running thing, did that come because of the military, or were you doing that prior to? Because I've been to about a dozen, I think, of your marathons, Diana, and I was like, we gotta go see Susan run again. And I mean, you've run probably all over more than the country. I think you've run abroad too, right? Other countries.
Yeah, I have. Right. Yeah. So I ran in high school, and in West Point, intramurals. I ran. You have to do it for Sandhurst team. I did intramural cross country, and you have to, run in the Army. I was on the Army 10-miler team, and some of the post, where I was stationed at the time. And, from my time in Afghanistan, like now, I have a cold stay, but, I was wheezing, had a lot of hives. Like I developed asthma. And when I got back, it's like, it was, it was tough for me to run, but I was like, well, if I don't run, I think it would be worse, right? So I slowly started running again, and and it was my goal to make it to the Boston Marathon, right? And you have to qualify to run Boston. You have to have a BQ. So I finally made it. So I've run 15 full marathons, not including the halves that you've probably seen. 15 full marathons. I've done 2 Bostons. Run Berlin.
You were at the Boston Marathon bombing. I remember that because Diana was supposed to go with you, but she ended up going, I think, to France with me, and we were landing, and all of a sudden they're like, bomb went off at the marathon, and Diana's like, oh no, Susan's there. So yeah, that was a big thing with us.
Yeah, and I was towards the end because I was about to finish, but I think after Heartbreak Hill or Newton Hills or somewhere, I thought I started wheezing. So I went to a medical tent for maybe less than 5 minutes. But I think medical tent was probably the best thing. I was like, they were like, just sit here for a couple minutes till you get your breathing back, then you can go again, just take it easy. But, sure enough, that was probably the best thing I did that day. But yeah, I was there for that too.
Did you hear it? You were close enough to hear it, right?
Yeah, I heard it. Yeah. At first I thought it was fireworks or celebrations. I'm like, well, but not everyone has crossed the finish line. Did it make sense to me, right? Yeah. Typically when you hear that, it's because everyone's completed the run. I'm like, there's some people out here had no idea what was going on till please stop this. And you heard all these sirens. We had no clue because we were out in the course. I didn't have my phone.
Yeah.
So
and if you were 5 minutes further ahead, you could have been in that mix.
Yeah. Probably. Yeah. Yeah. Because when it occurred, sad, very sad day.
Yeah.
There's day.
And that's got to be freaky too, because you come from, you were in Afghanistan, and then I hear that, you're like, it's following me or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Because you didn't know what it was. I know that, because we check in some of our bags. Walking through the area, we have to very circuitous route just to get your bags back, which had my phone. There was broken glass everywhere. You could see blood everywhere. It was, it was scary for many people. Even because I think there was some National Guard that were helping out that day, right? And a lot of people were just panicking. No one knew what was going on at that time. They didn't know, the situation. And it was, it was a very scary time.
Yeah, unfortunate, but running, I've watched you do it, and I look at it it's almost like therapy to you. It seems like you get in your zone. You're a different person after a run. For one, you're exhausted, but I just feel like you're just kind of, in a way, maybe it's your medicine. I don't know,
Yeah, right now I'm trying to complete the marathon majors, which is New York City, which I've completed, Boston I've completed, Berlin I've completed, and this October I'll be in Chicago for the Chicago Marathon. After that, I'll have London and Tokyo to complete the whole ring. I like it because in a way, especially the ones overseas, because you learn about people and their cultures, right? Gives you a chance to see the world. And to me, a marathon will show you who the hell you are, Because it's like anything, the beginning is easy, then you get to the middle part, which I really can't remember most of the middle part. And then you get to the end, 26.2 miles.
I remember after one of your marathons out here in California, you're like, there are a lot of hills in this town. Or,
yeah.
I think you were in Ventura, I think, running or something
Ventura,
like that.
or maybe Ojai or something.
Or
yeah.
Ojai,
I've been a lot. Yeah. So, and yeah, I know some people, they hate running, and, but I think for me, because it was hard to do, especially with the asthma, I was like, well, let me see, I'm gonna, overcome this thing, and let me see if running is gonna help me out. And I think it did. I was never the best runner to begin with, right? I'm probably a better runner now than when I was at West Point. So
yeah. Okay, let me go. I'm going to go a different direction. Somebody today who's thinking about military, is there anything that you'd advise them on what to do before they go, education-wise? Or, I mean, not everybody wants to be in West Point, but I mean, what would you suggest to people? Like some of the pitfalls that people could fall into, stuff like that.
Right, especially like now, what you see in the news, right? Especially a lot of the sexual harassment, failures in leadership, taking care of soldiers. As we see, it's not, it's not a big secret. Somebody were going in, I would just tell them, wow, like just be careful, I don't learn as much as you can, right?
People, I mean, I found this, at least back in my day, is that they don't really plan, like, okay, what will I get out of the military that I can make it into the civilian world? If I'm going to spend that time, pick something that's, an MOS, whatever you use to again, get me, because I found a lot of people got out and they pick a field with a certain specialty and they get out and they go, okay, well, sorry, but we don't need that kind of skill here,
Right. I think the problem, especially now, I see it with a lot of like my classmates and other West Point grads, like especially, I don't think the military prepares them for getting out, right? Like, next year, most of my classmates, a lot will retire, and some even got out at the 5-year mark or 10-year mark, but I remember being at an event, I won't name the general who was there, but he was telling a room pretty much, of people, that he was talking to one of the CEOs of the big financial companies, and they were like, oh, we love hiring West Point grads. You have no problem because of all your leadership and blah, 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 right? That's what he said he was told. But, I looked around in the room and I knew at least 5 unemployed people just there trying to network to get a job, right? So I think by telling people that you're doing them a disservice, right? Because some people think, okay, went to West Point, you have your bachelor's. Then you went to grad school, you have your master's. All right, then you went back to school, you got your PhD, and they think, all right, I'm good to go. I'm a veteran. People are going to love me. They're going to hire me. I got this award and that award. And if anything, when you get out, it doesn't work that way. I know someone personally who said to me, oh, when I get out, I'm going to be the CEO of some company. And it's like, I don't want to like burst their bubble and be like the Debbie Downer and be like, yeah, I don't know about that. And so this person went interviewing, and they found it tough. Later on, they were like, I don't understand. They said I'm overqualified. I have 2 master's degrees, a PhD, and blah, blah, blah. And sometimes it's your interpersonal skills, right? Because we were taught before, back in the day, you just keep going to school, and that's all you need. But many times I know people who didn't even go to school who are very successful. Sometimes I see soldiers who get out, and learn a trade, right? Like plumbing, or welding or something that's needed, and they do well, right? They learn how to open a business. And sometimes I see officers, I have so many emails from people asking for help. Like, oh, I'd love to move to New York City. Do you think anyone can, know anyone that can hire me? Or I know you have family in the entertainment business in California. Think they can hire me? So I think when people are getting out, they need to show them that, it's not just their academic skill, right? It's not enough to say, oh, I was a captain, so everyone wants to hire me. Because the truth of the matter is, it's not that easy. They go to job fairs, right? And they give the same spiel, and it's like they're clones of each other. right? So if you're a recruiter and you just keep hearing the same story, or I went to school, I did this, how apt are you to hire that person? And sometimes when they do get hired for a job they don't even want, or they feel they're underpaid. Because in the military, there's a lot of non-taxable things, right? Housing, sometimes you don't pay taxes depending on the state. Then they get out, then they see how expensive it is, right? And, they thought it was just going to be easy to get a job. And that's not the case. And I feel that there's a disservice by not telling them how tough it will be, and it's better prepare.
I have a teacher named Dr. G, and he always talked about like the Vietnam War and how more soldiers have died by their own hand than the Viet Cong ever took. And he talks about deprogramming them, meaning like giving them a way to acclimate back into civilian life instead of just dropping them into civilian life. And that's what it seems like the military is doing to you guys, is just, all right, we're done with you here. You're back. And that's why Cliff's having dreams where he's still doing that, or some of the things that you might be going through. But he talked about, like, in old world time, in China, they used to have this whole deprogramming thing that they would do after putting a warrior back into society. And it's just not dropping this, for, I guess, lack of a better term, a potential man who's just a killer, and dropping him back in and saying, be civilian again, and I guess it's the same with you guys, because you're sitting there and you're barked at and you're made to do all these things, and all of a sudden it's just like you got no home. It seems like, what do I do with myself? And I guess that's in a way what a lot of you guys are going through. I mean, I know a lot of military people, and I see a lot of them asking me, hey, I did this, I'm willing to do this, can you help me find work? I know that you get probably a whole lot more offer or requests than I do, but being in the entertainment stunt world, everybody's like, hey, I was in the military, can I be a stuntman? I'm like, there's way more to it, I can't just give you this.
Well, you think of anyone. I know what during the Vietnam era, when we went in, the biggest fear, you're going to get sent right in the combat and you may not make it back. I would see, people who came back. I mean, before I went in, I was working on base at the mess hall, and I would see these guys come in, and guys I went to high school with, and they never came back. And I go, well, it's going to be my turn. But you get in, and it's all about training you for combat, and you even have slang words for the enemy. They're programming you to do that so that you can kill and think of them less human. And I remember, I was a squad leader and I was running a squad there. I came back after I got out of my boot camp, came back, and I had all this profanity that, because that's what you did. You just used profanity. And my dad was like, because that's what I was talking like, right? After that boot camp time. And so, yes, you are programmed a certain way. And then, you make this transition to civilian life, and it's like, wow, where am I now, right? There is no, hey guys, let's deprogram you now because you're now in the civilian world and things are different,
Yeah, there's really, I mean, for me personally, like I said, I left on a Friday. That Monday, I was already working. It was tough for me. Some people will say, oh, it was easy for me, I just did this and this. But for me, I thought it was tough because it's like you're going from, the Army, now you're in the corporate world. And I got to learn all these new things. You're kind of awkward because you're calling every guy sir, you're calling women older than you ma'am. It's like, yeah, you're not. If somebody asks you, hey, what time, is the meeting? And you're like, oh, rather than saying, it's 2:30, you're like, yeah, it's 14:30. It's like, so you're still, the lingo is still there, and you have, you'll catch yourself, right? But for me, it was tough getting out. Because there were just so many new things you had to learn, and you knew you had to do well in your job because that's your livelihood. Sometimes I see, people in the military, it's like, it's easy for them because they know they're going to get that paycheck, right? They know that they're going to be in, especially the ones that who get promoted all the time, right? And sometimes they don't put much effort in their job. But out here in the civilian world, whether you work for a company or if you are a self-employed, person, like, hey, if you don't do what you need to do and make money, you're gonna be hurting, right? So you don't have that cushion to fall back on. And personally, I knew I had to make it. There was no not making it. I was working in the weekday, then I would take on like, maybe get another job on the weekends, like to just try to get enough so I could put money into property, So yes, it's tough. And, I think the military has to do a better job of preparing people to get out, because some, they're like, it's good to have confidence, right? But it's another to just assume that someone's going to hire you because you're a veteran, right? Sometimes you're better off, like if you're a soldier, using your GI Bill, learning a trade, learning a vocation that's needed. And, not everyone is meant to get a 4-year degree, right? Especially now, with when I got out 2007, 2008 was a whole crash, like Lehman Brothers, that whole thing, Bear Stearns, all the people were laid off, right? So you really have to prepare for, I believe, like the worst case scenario. You always have to prepare because you don't know what the hell's going to happen. For me, like I always tried to get some sort of passive income because I was like, I don't want to be at the mercy of some employer, who's like, yeah, you know what? We don't need you anymore. It's like, so that's the thing. I would suggest, like, learn as much as you can and always try to have something like emergency fund or something, because in the military, some people, they can make it with one income, right? The spouse usually stays home. They have kids. It's hard now with 2 incomes, let alone 1. So when they get out of the military and then they have to find a job, it's so stressful. And sometimes, it creates a lot of issues from what I've seen and I know.
Well, we're just about at our hour. I have one last question for you before we close this out. Did you ever think captain? Did you ever think, oh my God, or did you think general?
No. I was, I was very proud, very proud to serve and do my time. But no, I think with me, like when I'd rather leave on a high note, like I commanded in Afghanistan and led soldiers, I'd rather leave on a high note than leave when I really hate what the hell's going on,
Right,
like for me, it was time to leave. It was like, peace out, everyone.
Yeah.
I knew it was time to go. And because I knew it was time to go, I focused more on the future. And that's what I think people, they really need to be realistic and say, is this military thing for me or not? If it's for you, then do your best to stay in. If it's not, then think ahead and prepare.
You know what, though, I will have to say, in the last several years, I've seen an increased respect for people in the service that served, and it seems like businesses, like I think it was last year, one of the local car washes gave a free car wash and an oil change for veterans. So I took mine up, got it done, which was about a $50 value. They gave all around my neighborhood, they gave free meals to veterans. Right. This last year, the national park fee that we'd be paying $35, a disabled veteran could get a pass, but now they're giving it to veterans too. So, and everywhere I use my veteran card, or we went to like Handel's Ice Cream, and I just said, I heard someone mention veteran, and I go, do you do veterans discount? He goes, absolutely. And every time I show it, everyone always goes, and thank you for your service. So there is an increase, I think, because I didn't notice it years and years ago, but just recently, there's an increased respect for people who have served, and people seem to be very appreciative. Because if I go to Lowe's, every time, oh, and thank you for your service, it's everyone does
right.
that. So it's a big
right. Yeah. So when I worked as an analyst that first year, the guy who actually he was a director who actually hired me was a Vietnam veteran, right? And he was the head of fixed income and real estate. Very smart guy. Went to a school locally, no big name schools. But one of the reasons he told me, he hired me, is that when he came back from Vietnam, he was spit on, he was harassed, he was told off. He goes, I can only imagine. He's like, how tough it is now, to get a job. So he gave me a chance, So he goes, he wished somebody had given him a chance back then. So it's like, he knows how tough it is. But, also, yeah, I see what you're saying. Like, I think people now are more aware of veterans coming back. And like you're saying, the national parks, some of the, you get the discount at Lowe's and Home Depot. And I know because of all the renovations I've done in my real estate properties, like I've been to Lowe's and Home Depot so many times, right? But at least now, you know that people actually care. Whereas before, you didn't really see that, right? So more people are aware of it now. So
a good thing. All right, guys, we got to close it out. But Susan, thank you. You're remarkable. Thank you for your service. Cliff, thanks for your service. It is a big deal, and I think people should thank you because, I mean, it's the key to keeping this place what it is, this country, and you know, we need to be thankful. It's a big sacrifice. It's crazy. It's crazy the sacrifice that you guys have given. You know, life's short and time's valuable, and you've given it so much. So
thanks for having me. Right. I'm always thinking of a lot of my friends that are still serving, and even the ones that have gotten out, and hear a lot from them. And I think it's important that we always think about our veterans. We need to do a better job of holding our politicians accountable for the decisions they make. We need to hold, we need to make sure that the VA, treats our veterans well, not like, and if somebody's having issues, that they get seen. Unlike my friend who had to wait 2 months for a mental health appointment. We have to really think of that and just hold our leaders accountable so that people will want to join, our military, right? And want to serve and want to lead and want to give back. So we can all, continue to be safe in this country. Thank you.
Thank you. So, all right, Cliff, any follow-ups?
Nope, may not be here next week because I'm heading out to New Mexico for a big family reunion. Well, I say big, but it's actually getting small because I'm 20 years ago was the last one, and my dad was alive and all his siblings. Now they're all gone. So it's my first cousins. We're the old people now.
You should get a Filipino family reunion. Those are scary.
Yeah, I know. We need it would be huge.
Yeah. We went one year and they came out and like people are singing, like the kids are like, they're going to sing, they're going to dance. Then they handed Diana and I weapons. And we're like, what? You're going to do a demonstration? We're like, we are? And it was like, oh no, they don't give you a choice. It's just go do it. So they're fun. It was awesome. I love it.
I hope my cousins don't want that because it'll freak them out if he has to come out.
Yeah. It was so funny because Diana's going, it's in front of the family. He gave us these logs for like sticks. And Diana's going really hard because I think, she's like, oh no, the family wants to see it. And the stick bounced off my stick and hit her in the head. And I seen this big lump grow on her head. And I go, I didn't do that. She goes, I know. And she just kept attacking me. And I was like, wow, it was intense. She's intense. It's awesome. So, okay, I'm going to close this out. Susan, I appreciate it so much. You rock. Thank you for your service. And
I'll see you guys soon when I can fly again.
Yeah, hopefully. You're out of country now, aren't you? Going somewhere like Venezuela or something like that?
No, I'm going to Croatia.
Croatia.
I love Croatia. We went there in 2019. Oh my God.
Game of Thrones tour,
That's cool.
Do that. Maybe scuba dive. I don't know yet. We'll see.
Yeah, cool. Go run. All right. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.